Welcome back, guys. We have a terrific guest on with us this week. She is a former outspoken feminist who has recently become a wife, a mom, and she is a terrific content creator on YouTube. Please welcome from Orlando, Florida, we got Miss Rebecca Barrett. How you doing, Rebecca?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk to you. We met on Sauce, but we
Yes.
didn't have time to talk and actually, have a full-fledged conversation. So I'm excited for this.
It's so great because I've seen you on Adam Sosnick's show several times, and then
Yeah.
I just watched you on No Jumper this morning, and stuff like that. It's just very interesting because your journey is very interesting to a lot of people. I think there's so many unique parts of this. The first part is you having a degree in engineering with like petroleum engineering with a specialty in robotics. Is that correct?
I have a mechanical engineering degree with a specialty in robotics.
Got
Yes.
it. But it caused you to be on oil derricks and work with petroleum engineers.
Yes,
Can,
yes. I worked for an oil and gas service company for 3.5 years.
can you talk about that whole situation? Because I want to get through your origin story here. You said
Yeah.
you grew up in a traditional household. Parents were Brazilian.
Yes.
My mother's Colombian. Pretty traditional. And then from that situation, what was your journey, and then leading up to you, becoming a feminist, and then later transitioning?
Yeah. So, okay, I'll try to condense.
No, don't condense. We go 4.5 hours.
So
I don't give a shit. Let's go.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. I like it. Like you said, I grew up in a very traditional household. My dad both my parents immigrated here, but my dad immigrated here, $200 in his pocket, just started businesses. He was very entrepreneurial. So he ran a private jet company, and my mom stayed at home full time. And just growing up, I saw my mom at home, my dad constantly working, and I grew up like learning how to cook, learning how to clean. We had dinner parties at the house, and I would, set up the tables, and I was the one that helped with the kids and everything like that. Infidelity was also a part of my story. And, my dad is quote unquote a high value man, or was. He passed away in 2021. Um, but he was a very high value man. And unfortunately, there was a lot of sexlessness in the marriage. And I'm not going to get too deep into that. But he stepped out multiple times, and I saw that firsthand. So I would be with my mom, I would be consoling her, and I would be like, I can get a job. Like, don't worry, mom, I can do it. Like, we'll be fine. Just leave him and all that other stuff. And then, my parents stuck together until the very end, until my dad passed away 2 years ago. And I'm very grateful for that. But it was definitely a tumultuous, growing up. And with that, that was my first taste of I can't trust men. I need to be independent. I need to make my own money. I need to work for myself. And with my dad being so entrepreneurial, I wanted to follow in his footsteps. But he's like, you need to get a degree. You need to go to college. You need to, get something that you can make a lot of money. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm interested in robotics. I was on the robotics team in high school. I was captain of the robotics team.
Hey,
I'm
shout out to all the
so
former captains of the robotics team, man. That's
yo,
incredible.
I'm such a
You
nerd
must
at
have had so
heart.
many dates, girl, like people trying to go out of their way, man. You know who I want?
No.
Fuck the cheerleaders. I want the captains of the robotics team.
No, 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 no. I was the opposite. I was the opposite. I was very much the ugly duckling that had her, you
Glow up.
know, glow up in college. Um, so I did robotics in high school. I then went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University
So
here in
I'm an Air Force captain.
yes,
About a third of the guys I went with went to
yeah,
Embry-Riddle in Georgia.
Embry-Riddle.
It's in Georgia or Tennessee? Where is it?
No, Florida.
Oh, it's in
They
Florida.
have
That's
one.
right.
They have one in Arizona as well.
Okay.
But the Daytona campus is the biggest campus.
Got it.
I knew a lot of ROTC guys. The whole place is filled with Navy, Army, like all of them. So you either go to Embry-Riddle to be a pilot, or like to follow the Air Force and that route, or you go to be an aerospace engineer. I did neither of those. I do have my pilot's license.
So you have a PPL now?
No, I mean, I haven't flown in many years, but I flew a Cessna 182. My dad's a pilot, so I was like, we got to at least get one certification under our belt. And yeah, so I have I'm not current whatsoever.
Can you describe Bernoulli's principle to our audience?
No, I'm not doing that.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
So yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd at heart, love tinkering with things. So I decided I'm going to do mechanical engineering. It was fairly new at Embry-Riddle. And so the class sizes were smaller and I loved it. I loved robotics. I loved everything about building and working with my hands. So then that led me to graduation day, and I saw all my friends going to Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheon, all of these defense contractors. And I was like, I saw them during their internships, and I was like, they're just pushing paper. And if this is what engineering is about, I really don't want to do this. And I just spent 4.5 years in college, so I was not really eager about that. So we had Schlumberger come to our school and did those college days or whatever.
Yeah.
And I instantly was like, I'm going to go work in oil and gas. I want to go work with my hands. I want to be on rigs. And at the time, I'm like a stupid 20-something-year-old, like not knowing what that meant at all. So I got sent to California. That was where I was based out of, but then I worked all around the world. I did trainings and jobs in Abu Dhabi. I did some time in Alaska, in Texas, I did Amsterdam, the UK. So I went all over the world, for my job, and it was exciting and exhilarating, but it was also very dangerous. And I was usually one of the only females there. And that was very interesting. I already went to basically an all guy school and then transitioning into an all male workforce, which I just became one of the guys.
Yeah.
You have to blend in. You can't stand out. You can't just be like, I'm a dainty little girl that's never touch oil or anything like that. That's
how it is in the military too, for the pilots that we had. Some of the female pilots I had, they knew they were going to get criticized more than the men. And so they were hard. I had 2 female squadron commanders. They were some of the hardest people that I had to serve with. The other thing I was going to tell you is, I don't know if you know who Scott Crossfield is. I don't know if you read about him in aeronautical engineering. He was the first man to break Mach 3. He also designed the suits that they use whenever they go up in the U-2 up at 100 above 100K.
Okay.
He gave us a speech at Maxwell Air Force Base, and then he got in his Cessna 172, or it may have been a Barrett. It may be wrong. And he flew off, and he had a stroke, and he died right after he spoke to us. We were the last people to ever see that man alive. So after Yeager broke the Mach 1, he broke Mach 3. But the reason why I bring up the story is because you're talking about these guys going into aeronautical engineering and then pushing paper. Back then, they came up with the idea for the V-wing, for the Delta wing, on a fucking napkin while they were at a bar drinking. When he came up with the idea for the pressure suit, these guys are out drunk at a bar coming up with this stuff because they were at the cutting edge of technology, and now you go there and you work in the mailroom. You're right, it's very different.
It's so different, and it's something that it just doesn't become exciting. And so I wanted to be in a field that was exciting to me, and oil and gas seemed to be that. I worked onshore and offshore rigs. I was helicoptered onto a rig in Alaska, and then they sent me back off to get more materials. And then it had there was a huge storm, and they couldn't get us in the helicopter. So they had to take a 4-hour boat ride the boat's like tossing and turning in the sea, and then they take a crane and they lift us up from the boat onto the platform, and I'm having a hell of a good time. I'm like, this is awesome. I have video of it. I was like, this is the best thing I've ever, like, this is so cool. And meanwhile, like now I'm 34 years old and I look at those videos, I'm like, I was a crazy person.
Well, you also mentioned being on a platform full of men who hadn't seen women in 4 weeks, and you had to sleep with a knife and a wrench by you, and you had to you had to sleep in like the captain's the exos place or something like that.
Yes. So the job in Alaska, it was really interesting because again, naivete. Okay. So I get a call from my manager and she said, hey, there was an accident on this rig in Alaska. The guy broke his femur because a barrel of oil dropped on his leg. And we're going to need you to go and finish the job. And I was like, cool. Yes. Sign me up. I'm there. Like an idiot. And so I get on the next flight, going to Alaska. And mind you, I've worked on offshore rigs before in Santa Barbara, but they never made us stay on. They would usually take us off, especially the females. They would just take us off at the end of the night, or we would do like a 2-day shift and we would hot sheet it. Basically, like the guy that I was working with, he would sleep for like 30 minutes and then literally I would get in the bed after he did, and we're like in our work clothes, you know, just disgusting. Like I've had to sleep on like in the locker rooms and weird places that they had to put me. So
this was a significant problem on these oil derricks of men like taking. You said one guy was trying to have sex with you and you had to tell him not to, and then finally he filed something with HR because you said you were going to stab him.
Yes. So that was on a day rate, or so that was on a land job, and thankfully I could go home after that. But let's just say in the oil and gas industry, a lot of the rig hands are not documented if you're in California. So he was not documented, and he was working, everything's under the table there, not with my company, but you know, we work with contractors and other people. And so I'm on this job and this guy is literally harassing me the entire time. Just, you're so beautiful. I'm gonna stick it in, like just saying some weird things. And it's all in Spanish. Mind you, I understand Spanish very well. I'm Brazilian. We understand Spanish. Okay. So I'm listening to this guy literally telling his friends how he's gonna do all these things to me. I'm standing right there. And then at the end, he's like, he basically was threatening me. He's like, if you don't say yes, like I'm going to essentially like do bad things to you. And the guy who was on the job with me was another Mexican guy, but he like jokes around with all these guys. His name was Jerry. I will forever remember him. And he was like, chingada, and I was like, go, Jerry, go. I was like, I'm going to stick this knife straight into your stomach. I'm going to hit you with this 18-inch pipe wrench and I'm going to report you. Okay. So I said that to him. I'm going to report you, right, to authorities so that you can be deported. My man went to his boss, said that I sexually harassed him. Then his rig hand told my manager, and she called me into the office, and I was like, Janet, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this guy was harassing me the whole time on the job. Jerry was there, and she was like, well, you need to not act like that. And like, he reported you to HR and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, he was making advances towards me. After that, I said that I would report him. He was fired from his role, right? I don't know what happened to him, but the rest of the year and everything else, like all the guys had respect for me. They were like, oh yeah, like we didn't like him anyway. He was an asshole, like all this other stuff. And I was like, guys, I'm just trying to do my job here. And that was the first time I had cut off all my hair after that, because I just wanted to blend in. I didn't want to stick out. I didn't want to be this like hot chick on the job. I wanted to just be one of the guys and do my job. You know what I mean?
So your transition to feminism is before or after this?
This is all like, so after this.
After this. So you mentioned before, like there were things that you were exposed to that made you angry because you would watch feminist rhetoric.
These things. Okay.
So these things. So it was a combination of your father's infidelity combined with men's behavior when you put them in these situations. And we talk about this in my program. We talk about a lack of abundance. These men probably wouldn't act this way had they had, they were surrounded by women all the time, but because you put them on an oil derrick for 4 weeks, you start saying, we had this, obviously, when we deployed. I remember one time I deployed and there was this one intelligence officer. And I remember thinking, man, this is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my entire life. And she had this, instead of a titanium ring, she had a rubber ring on. And I was like, oh, that's great. So where are you stationed? She's like, oh, Wichita. She's like, how long have you been married? She's like, I'm not fucking married. I just wear this to keep these goddamn animals off me.
Yeah.
And because she'd be deployed, because I was air crew, so I'd only be out there for 6 months. She'd be out there way longer than that. And that's what she had to explain to me. But like when I got home, I saw her again and I was like, she's cute. But I was like, when I was deployed, I was like, who is this angel? I remember it's just weird what happens to the Homo sapien mind with scarcity and abundance.
It does. It really does. So the school that I went to, Embry-Riddle, they had that, like, you know how we have, how they call in red pill the sexual marketplace value, right?
Yeah.
We had our own value system and we called it the riddle number. So you were a riddle 6 or a riddle 8. A riddle 8 would be an average 5. Okay. That's the scarcity those guys went through.
Yeah. And
so like in the normal world, the girls that some of these guys were dating in college, they're hideous. Sorry. Like I'm still friends with some of that, but some of them would be like, yeah, I know I was busted, like still kind of busted.
Yeah, it is.
But we all said it. And even the guys too, like, oh, he's a riddle 5.
Yeah.
Or a riddle 8 or a riddle. And that's just how people did it. When you're correct. The scarcity mindset creates these weird things that happen with it. I don't know.
Same thing happened at the zoo. That's what we call the Air Force Academy, the zoo. It was like that with women. And then if you're deployed and it happens, you're a desert queen. We call it desert queen. Like the girl who's not necessarily that hot, but she's the only girl that you come around. So that's what we call it.
I mean, yeah.
So it's funny. So sexual market value is actually not a red pill term. It's a term from evolutionary psychology. And there is a study, and I talked to Dr. Buss about this, calling it the beer goggles effect, but they actually, I forgot what the actual term for it is, but it shows that for short-term and long-term mates, when they study males and females, for women, what they look for in a long-term mate is X. What they look for in a short-term mate is actually better looking, and they actually have higher standards in some cases for like the short-term hookup. So they may marry Alex the accountant, but if they're going to do a one-night stand, he's going to be like Brock the Thunder from Down Under dude, right?
Yes.
For men, it was like they would look for a high-status girl who had all these qualities for a long-term mate. For a short-term mate, it was ridiculous. Like intelligence made no difference whatsoever. Yeah. Like they actually measured just like how important was intelligence in a long-term and short-term. For women, it was at about the same. They wanted high-intelligence men for long-term and short-term mating. For men, it was like they wanted some intelligence for a long-term mate. For women, the numbers were embarrassingly low. Like they didn't care whatsoever about what meant, because that's the thing. In any two gender species, again, this comes from evolutionary psychology, the concept of the parental investment hypothesis. Whichever of the two genders puts more into, so for instance, whichever of the two genders has the larger sex cell, which for Homo sapiens is females, but there's certain types of seahorses and fish where it's actually males. In those cases, the one that invests more in the children, they are the pickier of the two genders. And so that's essentially what we see in this situation. But I thought that was really interesting. The beer goggles effect is a real thing. There are scientific studies on this.
No, it is 100% true. And if left on for a very long time, you get lost in it. You can't take those off.
Yeah.
You can't take the beer goggles off.
Shout out to all my soldiers out there, 18 to 80, blind, cripple, or crazy. What is the, was it Justin Waller told me he goes in Louisiana, it's 80 or 280. That's what we don't care. It's pretty funny. I'm sorry. We've just been canceled. All right.
Let's just be canceled. Let's just
be canceled. All right. So what I want to go into for are the things that lead you initially into feminism are what?
Is the infidelity, and then
by the way, I want to make one thing I want to say real quick. First wave feminism, I agree with first wave feminism. Women deserve the right to vote. There's several things in initial, like women's suffrage. I do. There's certain things that, and I don't have a problem because I am going to have some feminists on the show. Fifth wave feminism, there are certain things that just, it's not that I hate them, it's just they're nonsensical. And I think you're going to bring up some of those points. So I want to make a very clear distinction that you and I are both for, like all of us treated the same under the U.S. Constitution. We all have human rights.
Yes.
It's just we get to a point where it's not about equality anymore. And we'll talk about my interview with Richard Reeves a couple weeks ago where we discussed the same concept. But anyway, go ahead. Your initial introduction into feminism.
Yes. So the initial introduction. So fast forward, I leave oil and gas. I got really sick. I had an oil spill, or it was like a diesel accident that happened. I got very sick. Autoimmune issues flared up. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I love being in the field. I love my job, but I can't risk my health. So I leave. And that's when I start working on my first business. And that's also when I went from California to New York. Now, New York is a crazy place. I love it. I have a love-hate relationship with New York because it is so progressive. Like I don't even know how to explain it. When you're entering into these groups, and especially when you're a female founder, right? So I had started a company called Ment. It was an airport app. We basically created experiences within the airport and gamified wait times. And we would work with like the vendors in the airport it was like Waze for airports. That's how I used to describe it. It was like Waze for airports. So we'd gamify the experience for you, and we would reward people for giving us information and whatnot. We were live at JFK, LaGuardia, Newark. So that was my first company, and just being in the female founder, female entrepreneurial space, it was crazy. Like just going to these conferences, just being literally dumped in this world of like female empowerment. It was on steroids or something. And you as a woman starting a company, you have to kind of go down this route because then they don't really accept you as a person if you don't.
No, I worked in the hedge fund space and it was very similar. There are certain funds that are only going to lend you money if you have a certain requirement for certain identities that are involved in your group, whether they be minorities or whatever gender. And if you don't have that, then they're not going to give you money.
Exactly. So we were a 2 female founded team. I'm Brazilian. My other co-founder, she was Polish. We were like the dream team, right? And so we just like bought into these spaces. I was very much on board. She kind of had her foot in, foot out. But you would go to these conferences, you would go to these meetups, you would go to these coffee talks, you would go to these dinners. Everything was, first of all, white. I'm going to specifically say that white men suck, right? That was the talking point. All of our money is taken from us. Minority women can't get any funds. We have to fight for our seat at the table. So I got the entrepreneurial boss babe feminism introduced to me. That's the feminism that I got. Because there are other forms of feminism. For okay. Sure. There are the witchy feminists. There's all sorts of feminists out there. I was the boss babe feminist, capitalistic minded feminist. And I had to fight for my seat at the table. I had to go hard in these meetings. I would be sitting with investors and I would, go back and forth, all this nonsense. And I tell people, I'm like, I was playing a character. Uh, like, I'm a very sensitive person. And the more I was involved within these groups and talks and dinners, and all my friends were these crazy feminists, you're like, how are these people functioning? How are these women functioning? Like, do they not go home and cry? Do they not go home and like drink themselves to sleep and like take mad antidepressants and all this other stuff? Like, please tell me how these people are functioning, because that's how I was functioning. I was like very much drinking every night, trying to cope with all of the things. And I was just like, I wanted to follow my dad's route and being an entrepreneur and being this independent boss babe, female founder, raising all this capital in Forbes, in Huffington Post. I wanted all of that. But then underneath it all, I was like crying. I couldn't even attract men to me because I was so just always like be at the bar having a full-blown argument with some finance guy about this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? And it was just so chaotic.
You had a terrific video about this where you talked about women being told by their friends the reason why he ghosted you is because he can't handle you. And I thought that was interesting because as a guy, what I want in my relationship is like, I didn't buy a bed of rocks. That doesn't mean I can't handle a fucking bed of rocks. That's not what I signed up for.
Exactly.
If I'm in a relationship, it's not about me handling you or whether or not I'm tough enough to handle you. I didn't get into a relationship to handle shit. That's not why I'm in the relationship. And the other problem is it's not that you're not great. It's that I'm just going to look to my right and I'm going to find someone who isn't going to ask me to handle them. And that's why I'm going to choose them. No one got ghosted because you suck. You got ghosted. And I love what you said is that one of your family members came to you and told you that you were a miserable person to be around, and you still thank that person. Can you go into that specifically?
Yes. I won't name this person, but my family member, he came to me and it was around Christmas time and we were all together and he was like, Rebecca, honestly, like I can't handle your bullshit anymore, because I would just talk out of my ass basically. And I would try to, one up everyone. And I was always competing for the attention in the room. And he's like, I just can't deal with you. You're a miserable person to be around. You're not enjoyable. No one wants to engage with you. You try to one up everyone in the conversation. It's not a competition. And I was like, dang, like it hurt a lot. And at the time I was screaming at him. I was like, no, I'm not like that, blah, blah. And then everyone around, like on the back of it, we're like, yes, you are. Yes, we can't say it to you, because if people say that you're a combative person, if people say that you are just not a nice person, my reaction at the time was, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like I would go off. Okay. And so he had enough courage to say that to me. And I thank him every single day, because that's when like the scales started falling from my eyes. It's not everyone else's fault why I can't raise money. It's not everyone else's fault why, I this, that, whatever the situation is, right? It's not their fault. I play a role in it. And that's when I started reading, actually went back home or went back to New York, and I would, I started reading Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life, I was like, okay, like, what is this about? This seems cool. And I was trying to get some self-help books and I stumbled onto that one. I was like, okay, I can do this, right? I can clean my room. I can try not to lie. I can do all these things. And that's when I started looking at my life, taking accountability and being like, okay, I'm not a victim here. Like, I'm playing a victim. I'm really good at it. I'm really good at blaming everyone else for my problems, but I put myself in these situations, right? Not like no one held a gun to my head and said, you need to do this and you need to do that. I put myself in these situations and I put myself in these circles and I put myself around people that were very toxic and were draining my energy. And I was the one drinking and I was the one, doing all this harm to my body. And at that point, I was just, you know, when you start taking accountability, your world kind of crumbles.
Yeah. Yeah, your narratives fall apart, man. And the problem is all of them fall apart.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
all of your narratives fall. Like I have this discussion sometimes. I used to work for a company, and the guy who ran the company, I didn't realize I was being gaslit at the time, was like, don't talk to this person, and this person. When I stopped working for the company and I was like, wow, I really am glad I'm not working for them anymore. In my mind, I still didn't like those people they told me to not like. And then I went and
Yeah.
met them one day and I was like, oh, all of it was a lie. All of it was a lie.
Mhm.
He didn't want me to talk to them because he robbed them too. Now I understand what's
Yeah.
going on. And so this is the same type of situation where it's like your entire narrative is built on this cornerstone of this one belief. So in your case, it is the white man is specifically robbing from all women and
Yes.
everyone else. And then when that comes away and you start to see, no, they're just trying to make it like everyone else, then all of a sudden all the pieces fall apart. And then it's really difficult. A lot of people, though, I would highly recommend this book for you. It's called Conspiracy by, I believe, Michael Schumer. And in the thing where he goes in the book, he starts talking about when people start, the doomsday people, the world's going to end December 21st, 2012. As soon as the
Yes.
world doesn't end, they don't apologize. They don't start crying. They don't start saying, oh, fuck, we were wrong. Instead, they are more sure of their belief. They have
Yes.
doubled down on their belief. It's just a fantastic, it's like, because what happens is when you go far right, and we'll call out both sides. When you are a far right fifth wave feminist who believes that every single thing that you do, that literally heterosexuality is a cultural construct, and the reason why men like pretty women is because they're taught to do so, and you're a hardcore red pill fucking, you're a black pill fucking looks money status doomer, in both cases, you have believed in a conspiracy that has led you to a narrative, and logic cannot creep in. And like, I love Neil deGrasse Tyson when he says this. He says, you did not use logic or reason to get into this viewpoint. I cannot use logic or reason to get you out of it.
Out.
And so that's what makes it so wrong. And I'm criticizing both sides because the looks money status guys, the black pill doomers, they're just emphatically incorrect. And I could show them repeatedly. And the people who believe that they're nothing but a victim. Again, this is a conspiracy mindset that goes on, that there's this cabal that ends up holding you down. And it's just, the problem is when you have those type of individuals, if I look to my right and my left and I see people who look like me and they're rich and they're successful, I can't explain away how the fuck are they rich and successful and I'm not. Well, there must be some additional cabal that's going on instead of taking accountability.
Yes.
I just could, like, hardcore conspiracy theorists, people just don't make a lot of money. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm never worried about pissing them off because they can't afford my fucking program to start with. And so like that's the problem. It's like you have there is a reason now, because of the Illuminati, George Soros eating fucking babies, and the lizard people that live under Antarctica, why you live on your fucking mom's couch. No, dude, that is not why. But it's fine if you want to believe that. It's going to be very easy for me to sell you a course because obviously you want to believe in this nonsense. I'd rather just be rich. I'd rather just be successful, and I'd rather have a family that loves me than to believe in this nonsense. So that's essentially what's going on.
I agree. I agree. Yes. It's crazy. Like, I could have doubled down. I could have easily doubled down and said, it's not my fault. He's talking, he's talking out of his. But when you get confirmation from other people that say, actually, you're a terrible person. It really opens your eyes. And at that time too, I stopped drinking. I stopped going out with these people. I remember having a breakup from my best friend at the time. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I can't do this anymore. You are literally taking all of the energy, and people are these people are leeches. They will take everything good from you and strip you of everything because it's misery loves company, and it goes on both sides, just like you said, like the far, far right, the far, far left, all of these people. When you're so bought in, if you don't keep pressing in and doubling down on the narrative, right? Your whole world crumbles. Everyone else will dump you. Everyone else will just, start calling you crazy. So when I started stepping away from these people, I was being talked about. I was like, "Oh, she's going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs now." Like, she's talking about all of this other stuff.
She wants. That's funny. Yeah. Wait, when
And
you left the feminists or when you joined the feminists?
but my family was saying she's going cuckoo for
When
Cocoa
you
Puffs
became a feminist.
when became a feminist, and then my friends, when I was leaving feminism, were like, "Yeah, she's going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs."
She wants to have a
So
baby and shit. She's
yeah,
so crazy.
and I was the one that literally, I remember telling people, "I do not want kids. I do not want marriage. I don't want any of these things." But it was a lie. It was a lie that I told myself so that I could. Here's the crazy. It was a lie that I told myself so that I wouldn't be disappointed in the idea that I possibly couldn't get that.
So you
Does
made a
that make
video.
sense?
You made a great video about this. Women saying they don't want to be mothers, and you believe that it is a
Yes.
certain amount of propaganda that gets them to say these things.
Yes. Absolutely. Because when the narrative becomes, "Oh yeah, like you don't need kids. Oh, you don't need a man. Kids are jail and all of this other stuff. Like, look at what happens to your body." Of course, that sounds terrible. You know what I mean? That sounds like a jail sentence. But now being a mom, like, I'm so, I, I know that my purpose in life was to be a mom, and I hope that I can have more children, right? But if I never had that experience, if I never got that opportunity to be a mom, I don't I don't know where I would be. You know what I mean? Because I bought into that lie so hard, and then when I met my husband, it was like, okay, all of that was dismantling. I wanna have his babies. I wanna get married to this man. I want everything that I said that I swore I never wanted, and all my friends are looking at me like, "Is she okay? Is she having an aneurysm?" Because this girl, I told people that I wanted to name my first kid Sphincter because I didn't like children that much. I was like,
Wow.
I'm gonna name them. I'm gonna name them. And I know like people are gonna talk, and the comment section is probably gonna be crazy. But it's true. Like, I told people so much that I didn't want children. My mom my mom is watching my baby right now. She cried the day that I got married. She cried the day that, she found out that I was pregnant. She's like, "I never thought this would be for you. I prayed about it. I just never thought, because you said, and you were very, very convincing that you didn't want these things." And I'm so happy that, you know, yeah, you can call it the universe, God, whatever, that my life changed and that I woke up and that I got my, senses back, and I'm just a happier person now. It's crazy how I look at photos of myself in New York and I look at photos of myself now. I'm two different people. I was blue hair, pink hair, purple hair, short hair, bald head, all that stuff. Just I remember faking the smile. I can remember seeing in those photos, wow, like I remember I was really, really drunk that day. Or I was not all there in that photo or at that time. And now it's like I'm clear-minded. I can't even begin to express how happy I am. Like, my entire purpose in life is this. I love being a mom. I love being a wife. I love speaking to women. I love doing what I do here. And I get the flexibility to do that. Like I don't have to bust my brain every day. I don't have to prove to anyone that I'm the best of the best, that I'm going to be Forbes 30 under 30, that I'm going to raise billions of dollars in capital. That was what I desired at the time. Now it's like I make content to help women, and I get DMs from women all the time. Rebecca, thank you so much for making that video. I related to it so much. I hope that one day my daughter gets to see my videos and hear my stories and all this other stuff. Like, obviously, I'm going to tell her, but you know what I mean? I get so many people saying to me, like, I'm showing this to my daughter. I sent this to my wife. Hopefully, the message comes across, and so I'll get off my soapbox now.
Well, one of the things I think is interesting. So again, this book behind me right now, talking about evolutionary psychology, it is possible. There are certain women who just don't want to have kids, legitimately of their own volition.
Correct.
Came to that decision.
Yes.
The problem is the idea that it's very similar to when I hear vegans tell me that humans used to not eat meat. It's like, no. What you're saying doesn't make sense because my body needs vitamin B12 and I have incisors, 2 eyes on the front of my head because I'm a fucking predator. That's the reason why I eat meat. I know that I used to eat meat regardless of how much you don't like this idea. The idea that that women don't want to have babies. Well, how would our species exist? There are 400,000 elephants on the planet and 8 billion human beings. Obviously, women in general, on balance, would want to have kids. Doesn't mean that some women don't, but on balance, women would want to have kids. So for somebody telling you that women shouldn't be having kids or should make the decision to not do so, or to ignore the idea that your eggs slowly lower over time, I believe over the age of 40, you have like less than 10% of your total egg production at that point, and the likelihood of you carrying a child to term becomes less and less as the years go on. Those things, when you express those things to them, they become very offended, and then they don't like this idea. The other thing I want to talk about was I thought that was really interesting is that for a man, the finding a career and being able to take care of a family is not as difficult as it is sometimes for women when they get into a situation where it's like, I need the PhD. You showed the video of the woman. She's got multiple PhDs, and then she was 5'10", and she had a very difficult time finding a man. Whereas a man put in the same situation men seem to be able to be pliable enough to do both, where you had mentioned that you felt women had a harder time with this.
Yes. Like being, and we can get into the polarity aspect of this, but like, I was very much in my masculine frame, but it was so hard to get there. I had to fake it. The term like faking until they make it, like I had to fake it in order to actually get to where I wanted to be as an entrepreneur. And people can say, oh, she quit because she failed and all that stuff. Yeah, I failed multiple times. I'm very resilient. I think as a society, we should fail more in life and we should do things that challenge us and whatnot. However, I think for women, I think the idea of competition, I think the idea of, fighting and constantly being in that mode is not what we were meant to do. Like we weren't born, we don't have the same capacity towards that. Some women do. Sure, I will give you that, right? Some women do, but I would say the majority of women don't do well in those situations. And especially battling, right, with men, trying to compete, saying that we're the same as as a man. Oh, like whatever I can do or whatever he can do, I can do better. That's a lie. And women are sold that, right? And then we're disappointed at the end of the day when we can't live up to those same expectations. Sometimes, the worst things that someone can say is, you can do it all. You can have it all. For a woman, that doesn't compute well. And I'll say for myself, that didn't compute well. Maybe some women, but I would argue that the majority of women don't do well with that because now she's thinking about every single possibility, right? And then when she doesn't accomplish those things, that's when anxiety, depression, all those other things set in. And that's the state of a lot of women. And I've spoken to a lot of women, and since leaving, New York and the female entrepreneurs, I saw a lot of those the same women that were these like top level CEOs, and these people, they have to choose between what they want. Do they want a career, a successful career? Yes, they're going to get that. But they don't have husbands. If they have husbands, they don't have children. You have, like, as a woman, there are limitations to that. And it's okay. Those are the differences between men and women. But when society is preaching to women, you can be as strong as a man. You can do whatever a man does, and you can do it better. That narrative is very dangerous for women. And I think that's probably why a lot of women are on all sorts of medications and dealing with all of this like work stuff, right? Because it's really hard to compete.
Let's bring the science here. There's this famous
Yes,
2017 study that comes out with that talks about the happiest group of people, the happiest cohort of human beings are women over the age of 40 that are childless. And then there's another, and they just leave it at that. There's several articles, several different publications that use this study, and then they completely leave out the part where there's another study that shows the group of people on this planet that are taking the most antidepressants.
Yes,
are 40-year-old women who don't have child and aren't married. And so that's the taken out of context, it seems like that would work. But again, from an evolutionary standpoint, we're going to point to this again. How does it make sense evolutionarily for people to want to be older and childless? Again, from the standpoint of the species, that does not fit into our survival. If all our proclivities come from survival, which they had to, because at some point there were fewer than 10,000 humans on the planet. Everything we did had to aid in our survival. If it didn't aid in our survival, then it wouldn't exist. So this idea that we all want to go out there and not have kids doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make sense in a large standard, in a population level study. That wouldn't make any sense.
Correct. And even just look at our biology, like the female pelvis is shorter and wider than the male pelvis. Why? Because we have to push a baby out.
Yeah.
Like, it's in our bone structure. Okay. It's in everything. Our hands are the distance between our neck and our shoulders, right? Well, I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of things being put out there about different women, measuring the distance between the neck and the shoulders. You can't ignore these things. And because we have, as a society, we're letting women down, I think. And we are creating these, I don't know. We're letting women down in the grand scheme. And then as a society, we're not procreating. We're not making babies. We have men that go their own way. We have fem cells that are over here not trying to get married or anything. Where does this leave us? Where does this leave us? Like, I get it. Like, you don't want to have kids, right? But like, how do we move society forward? We've been doing this for, I don't know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, right?
Yeah.
Just fine until now.
Right. This is another thing I thought was interesting, was the idea when you would bring up the beliefs of modern day feminists, and they talk about an egalitarian nature and equal rights for everyone. And then they would criticize women who were stay-at-home girlfriends.
Yes.
Can you go into that? I thought it was a really interesting reaction video that you made.
It is interesting because, and we'll get into the different, the evolution of feminism as well in this. So feminism, first wave, second wave, I'll give third wave feminists. At the end of third wave feminism, you see a shift. So feminism, the definition is, oh my gosh, the socioeconomic, oh my gosh, why am I messing this up right now? The socioeconomic and political equality of the sexes, right? That was the definition that people were basing everything off of. Equality, right? not equality of outcomes, equality of the same, you know, opportunity.
Yeah, the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes.
Yes, equality of the sexes, right? In the end of third wave feminism, entering fourth wave feminism, you see a shift there. Now they're talking about equality
Equality of
of
outcomes. Yes.
outcomes.
So
Equality of
this is something
outcomes.
Rollo talks about this a lot. So initially, what the way it works is we are all, according to the U.S. Constitution, we are endowed with inalienable rights by our Creator to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. What we're not endowed with is the right to wealth. We're endowed with the right to pursue our happiness, meaning the starting line should be about as fair as we can get. But as we progress forward, this is one of the reasons why I'm very much against using property taxes in order to fund school systems, because you encourage a cycle of poverty. But but as far as the starting line, we're supposed to be similar. But the end line, you sort of determine that on your own. Because if I get to choose to pursue my happiness and I do a better job of pursuing it than you, then I'm wealthier than you, and I have the right to be wealthier than you, according to the way the U.S. Constitution is written.
Yes. And so when I made this video, right, as feminists love to say equality of we want equality. We want equality. That's the definition, right? We have equality. We've had equality. We've had equality since the end of first wave feminism. Okay. So they started moving the goalposts, right? They started moving the goalposts. They're like, we want more, we want more, we want more. So now we have equity, right? So now everyone has to have equity. Equity, it's not 50-50. It's not, this many men have to be in this and this many women. No, it's this many women have to be at the top of the food chain, at like they have to be CEOs and whatever. So when I made this video about the stay-at-home girlfriend, a lot of feminists like to say, Rebecca, but it's like we're setting women back, blah, blah, blah. No, we're not. We made a choice. These women made a choice to stay at home. These women made a choice, and they're smart. Okay. They're actually very smart, because specifically these stay-at-home girlfriends, stay-at-home wives, they're capitalizing off of TikTok. They're capitalizing off of trends, right? They have YouTube channels. They have Instagrams. You don't think that they're just relying on their man? No, they're making money. And that was the whole idea of the video. It's like, you scream equality, you scream equity, you scream all of these things that women should have the ability to do whatever they want to do. And these women are making the decision. No one held the gun to their head and said, you need to stay at home, right? They made the decision to be stay-at-home girlfriends. They made the decision to be stay-at-home wives, stay-at-home moms. They made the decisions with their partners. Like when you partner up with someone, when you are in a relationship, engaged, married, you have to make sacrifices in the relationship. That's how things work. And people are over here, saying that she deserves to do whatever she wants. That was her choice. Like, we live in 2023. No one has to force anyone to do anything anymore.
So it is okay for women to have agency until that agency causes you to do something that is not politically viable.
Exactly.
Then all of a sudden, I have a friend of mine. I'm not going to say who she is. She's very politically conservative, and she's always talking about go team and always talking about positivity. Until you disagree with her, then she's not very positive. It's like one of those situations. I'm all for everyone's freedom, even people I don't agree with. I didn't want Kanye canceled. Like, there was a lot of things like that. Even if I don't agree with what you have to say, I'm not going to ask for you to be canceled, because that is how free debate and free thought works, is by letting people speak. A lot of times letting people speak works in your favor, because they say things that are wrong, and you let them say the things that are wrong. Going back to what you were saying before, in 1972, we passed Title IX. And Professor Richard Reeves, doctorate from Warwick. He was a former special advisor to the deputy director of the UK. He worked at the Observer, and he worked at the UK Guardian. He just wrote a book called Of Boys and Men, and he's a senior Brookings fellow. And so he came on my show 2 weeks ago, and when we had a discussion, one of the things we talked about was about 30% of psychologists right now are male, and under the age of 30, it's about 5%. Now, normally, if you just were to look at a normal distribution, that number should be around 30%. There are more, as a percentage, female military pilots than there are male kindergarten teachers. And what happened was, because of industrialization, global industrialization, a lot of manufacturing jobs left the United States. So jobs that were dominated by men would leave. Men did not get into education and medical practices, but women did get into accounting, law, and they got into engineering in different fields like that. And so what happened is you ended up with this large group of, for lack of a better term, useless men, as far as the economy is concerned, useless men who didn't have a trade that they could use. And then when you say those things, then we should see empirically those things show up. And what we see is the GSS survey showing a third of men under the age of 30 having zero sexual partners, and 80% of men on dating apps being deemed unattractive. Also, there's another, I believe it was a Pew Research study stating that twice as many men under the age of 30 are single as women. And it's really funny because the researcher couldn't figure out, why is it that twice as many men under the age of 30 are single as women? Who are these women dating? The answer is obviously more established, wealthier men. That's who they're dating, or they're all dating the same more established, wealthy men. But that they just could not bring themselves to explain, because then, of course, it would prove hypergamy. They would never bring themselves to talking about that whole fact. So I thought that part was really interesting, you bringing that up. What happened with Title IX? Title IX wasn't a bad thing, but we went to the opposite direction, to the point where 60% of people enrolled in college for a bachelor's degree are female, but 68% of them are graduating, meaning 32% of college graduates are men. And you end up with a bunch of women who have college degrees. And you know what women with college degrees don't want to do? Date men without college degrees. And so now we end up in a situation where you have a bunch of men who are normally, have higher testosterone, whatever, and they're confronting a group of women who don't need them, or at least from their standpoint, believe that they don't need them. And then you end up with this, you end up with this situation where we are now, and then poof, that's where the red pill comes from.
Yes. And it's only going to get worse. I
totally agree with you that we probably, there's one point I would debate you on, I don't agree with, and that was when you had the discussion about what's going to happen to people when they appear on OnlyFans, or what's going to happen to you. You did a video about OnlyFans. I agree with you from a moral standpoint. My point is, if you think about who's the top sales guy that everybody wants to emulate in the United States, it's like, I'm not fucking leaving. And he snorts coke, and he fucking does Quaaludes. And he fucks a bunch of prostitutes, and he goes to jail for 15 months. And now Jordan Belfort is like the top sales training coach in the world. Bruce Jenner transitions to Caitlyn Jenner, leaves a bar. Apparently she wasn't drunk, from what I understand, but they never tested her. Runs into a person, puts them into oncoming traffic. They end up getting killed. Runs into a second person. 4 months later, she's Woman of the Year. Logan Paul goes into a field. There's a dead body. All of a sudden he's canceled. He does one fight with KSI. Now he's got 19 million subscribers on YouTube. Where I disagree with you is that I do think Lana Rhoades will be the head of the PTA at some point. I just don't think people pay for shit anymore. I think the reason the world has changed is not because of a change in our morality. It's because of a change in our consequences, to wit, there are no consequences. You had a man who was a reality TV star who had filed for 3 different fucking bankruptcies, who fucked a porn star while his wife was pregnant, and we elected him to become president of the United States. But you think, Oliver North was the head in charge of the Iran-Contra affair, and we made him a correspondent on Fox News. No one pays for shit anymore. The Tinder swindler has a fucking coaching program now. That's just the only part where I disagree. I think
I actually changed after all of that, and we had talked about it on Saucecast, but I went home thinking about that as well. I was like, it's true. It's true what you're saying, because we've left morality. Morality, poof. It doesn't exist. Everything is up for grabs at this point. It doesn't matter, like you said. And so, now you're seeing all these people, what's it called? You have young girls.
I mean, Danielle Bergoli is the greatest example of all. She is literally put on Dr. Phil to be shamed because of her behavior. Oh, you don't like what I'm saying? Why don't you catch me outside? How about that? She is there to be shamed and ridiculed by an older, judgmental population, middle class population, older in their 60s. Judge. Last year, she made $30 fucking million on OnlyFans and spoke at Oxford talking about what and you think that people are going to pay? No, but no one's going to pay for anything. That's my point. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is the shift in the reality we live in is not because of a lack of morality. It is because of a lack of consequences. Nobody pays for anything. I'm going to bring up a really weird example. The fact that Tekashi 6ix9ine is a snitch to the feds is not confusing to me because he looks like a snitch. He paints his hair all kind of weird fucking colors, and he's one of these extremely effeminate men who tries to act hard and masculine. Yes. That's not what's weird to me. What's weird to me is he's still fucking alive. That's the part that's crazy to me. How is he not? How is this motherfucker not dead after snitching to the feds openly, trying to be a hardcore rapper? And he just goes out to clubs and everyone knows where he is. And this dude is still walking the streets. You want to talk about a complete shift in reality? To me, he is the biggest shift of all of them. The fact that he just did that. He literally went. By the way, if you're a normal person, I'm not saying don't cooperate with law enforcement. It's just he's supposed to be a hardcore gangster rapper snitching to law enforcement, and he paid no price for it. That's the part that's crazy to me, that society has shifted that much.
But that's the whole conversation of the red pill too. Like there's no consequences for women, so women can do whatever they want. And so here we are. Women, like people in general, people don't take accountability. Okay, so so when you have women, like the mass majority of women not taking accountability and do whatever they want to do, how can you? I mean, it makes total sense how we're here.
Yes.
If people ask me, "Oh, how did we get here?" People don't have accountability. Everything's blaming everyone else for their problems. It's really easy. That's the thing that I'm like, it's really easy to just say, "Hey, it's not my problem. It's not my problem."
Yeah.
That's easy. When you have to own it and you have to actually confront it, that's the hard part, right? My husband's in a 12-step program. I'm in a pseudo 12-step program. It's just, I wish more people, regular people, would do a 12-step program in anything, because they're all kind of similar. They all have the same principles. They all have the same, general, idea. I think it would be very beneficial to people because you have to confront your problems. You have to say, I have a problem. I led myself here, right? Now let's fix it. Let's make amends. Let's work on our defects of character so that we can better ourselves and not mess up anyone else's lives anymore. I desperately wish a 12-step program were for regular people. Truly, honestly, because when I discovered it, I was like, wow, this is great. This is amazing. And more people should have access to this. But it's just easy to be like, nah, it's not my fault.
So you've chosen a 12-step program and a group of people to hold you accountable.
Exactly.
The reason why that doesn't happen naturally is because our ancestors were always in a 12-step program, meaning the 12-step program was, if I don't get up and go to work, we starve. That was the 12-step program. If I don't protect my wife, she gets raped. That's what's part of the 12-step program that he was part of. The further away we get from the survival scenario, the more we have undefined gender roles, and the more we start seeing men as like. I remember watching Chris Williamson ask Richard Reeves, unironically, he's like, "What are men good for now?" And I'm like, motherfucker, let the Chinese invade. You'll see what men are good for in about 2 seconds if you're confused about that. So I mean, it's just one of these situations where I just feel as we get further and further away from the survival scenario, in which case everything you did you were accountable for, right? Mm-hmm. You saw another tribe and chose to not attack them. They came and attacked you. Like that's the level of accountability that you had. Everything was a life and death decision. As we get further away from that, and by the way, a lot of these things are good. Modern medical practices, the fact that if you go to an ER and you've been shot, they will treat you even if you don't have insurance. Like we live in a better society with antibiotics and things like that. We can set bones. And we can deal with people who have genetic disorders, and they can live long, fruitful, happy lives, but they pass on their genetics, and then we deal with those genetic problems down the line even further. When we live in this society like this is the reason why we don't have that level of accountability. And one of the things I did a debate with Ruslan, and one of the things he said that I completely agree with, he goes, "My kids are going to look like fucking superheroes." He didn't say say fucking, obviously.
Yes.
But it was like, my kids are going to look like superheroes because they're going to hold themselves accountable and they're going to take care of their health, wealth, relationships. They're going to read books. They're going to just be these normal, accountable human beings. Squared away Marines. That's who his kids are going to, and my kids, the same thing. They're going to be that way. And what'll happen is, as the Overton window shifts to the left and there's less and less accountability, I think people who hold themselves accountable will find a way to stand out more. I found, as a business person, one of the things I did with my business is I just held my employees accountable. We had very, very strict rules on everyone gets paid on time. No one ever touches commissions. And I never promise anything to my clients that I can't do. It wasn't promise them the world. It was promise them a little and then always keep to that promise. It allowed my company to quadruple every year because of that. Because compared to the rest of the Tekashi 6ix9ification of the rest of the planet, I just it wasn't that I was great. I just looked terrific compared to the alternative, which is a bunch of scam artists selling Forex and fucking crypto programs that don't do shit or trying to explain to you pickup. Like that was one of that just in comparison to them, I just wasn't lying. And then that's essentially what happened. So like I was saying before, your kids are gonna look like superheroes.
Yes, they are. And I'm homeschooling them for a little bit and maybe they'll go to school. I don't know. We'll figure that out. I have a 1-year-old daughter right now.
Yeah,
so.
Listen, boys got to play football at some point. All right, here we go. The next one is, I love this. You have 2 statements, and they're both warnings for men and women, and they're my favorite, and I want to make T-shirts out of them. The first one is, don't stick it in crazy.
Yes. I love that.
Can you give our male viewers a warning there? Don't stick it in crazy.
Don't put your dick in crazy, people, right? Women specifically. Yeah. Just don't do it.
It's hard for men because you talked about this with I think with on No Jumper. It was like it's difficult for when a man doesn't have a lot of abundance. He's just going to put himself in these crazy situations.
But and that's the thing, people complain about who they date or who they get with or the consequences of their actions, right? And then you look at their history and you see the same face, different name.
Yeah.
I'm like, you just like toxic people. Yeah. Confront your trauma because that's obviously happening because of things that you haven't confronted, you haven't talked about, you haven't figured out, you haven't flushed that out yet. So you attract these types of people. And I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for guys who stick it in crazy and then they, get one of those crazy women pregnant and then they're trying to take them to court and all this other stuff. I don't feel bad, right? Let's take accountability for these things. And I say that to women too. Like, you let everyone take ownership of your womb, right? You have to be the bodyguard. You have to be the head of security of your womb.
That was the second statement. You have to be the head of security of your womb. That's what you say to women, which I thought was interesting.
Yes.
And then let's bring it back to the science. There's a study. Now, this study's pretty old and it probably needs to be updated. But basically, they showed the number of sexual partners you had and whether or not it affected your ability in a marriage. And it did this is one thing the fundamental Christians got right. When you're at virgin marries virgin, the likelihood of them getting divorced is actually extremely low. Yes. When you get past that, it has much more of a deleterious effect on women than it does on men. Meaning men can have multiple sexual partners and it generally doesn't affect their ability in a marriage. What affects their ability, what causes men to cheat is not previous sexual partners. What causes men to cheat are options. Like you're just in a place where you're surrounded by a bunch of women. What causes women to want to stray away from the relationship has to do, according to this survey, according to this study, has to do with previous sexual partners. Once a woman got past 20 previous sexual partners before she was married, she had about a 17% chance of staying in a marriage. And 53% is on balance. Like that's the average for the entire nation. So I thought that was interesting that you had brought that whole thing up, which was the idea that like when a woman consistently has sex with lots of men, her dopamine response for each individual man becomes lessened and her ability to imprint on the new man becomes more difficult.
Yes, absolutely. And it is our jobs as women to stay in our marriages. Men are not leaving marriages, right?
About 70 to 78% of marriages of divorces are initiated by women.
Exactly. So it is on our shoulders as women to maintain our marriage. I tell this to women all the time. I go, I don't care. Like, and I look, Michael, listen to me. I talk to a lot of women. I watch a lot of videos. We obviously, we're content creators. We watch a lot of things, right? I see the same problems with men that these women complain about, right? They don't take out the trash. The socks are everywhere. The blah, blah, blah is here. They don't do what I tell them to do. Listen, let's just call it what it is. All these men, I would say the majority of these men, right? That's what you're going to marry. I'm so sorry to break it to you. There's no Prince Charming. You might have one man in the world that like picks up after himself and that does these things, right? Willingly. Men don't care like we care. And so like I've seen women, I saw a video of this woman saying, I initiated my divorce because of a pool. Because my husband didn't drain a pool after the season was over. And so that led me to divorce him. What on earth? Like you're going to break up your entire family because your husband didn't empty a pool, that your husband didn't take out the trash, that your husband wants to have sex with you. God forbid he wants to have sex with you and only you for the rest of your life. God forbid, right? It boggles my mind. I hear it in our marriage. I'm in a marriage group. These people have been married for 15, 20, 30 plus years. They're still going through it, right? They're still figuring it out. It gives me hope. I'm like, wow, these people are really putting in the work to make their marriages work. But people give up too easily because the world sells you, it's better on the other side. The grass is greener, honey. Come over here. Let's show you what dating life looks like after you're divorced at 40 with 3 kids. I'm telling you, the grass is greener where you water it. And when women like listen to these things specifically, it is dangerous because they'll leave very good men for just trashy men on the other side. They'll just find the same thing. And these people are chasing, I think women specifically chase passionate love when companionate, I can't say the
companionship.
word. Yeah, but it's called companionate love.
Companionate love.
Yes, that companionate love is the ultimate love. You have passion, intimacy, and you have companionship.
It lasts. Yeah.
It lasts. That's what makes it last. But when you're constantly chasing, oh, I want the passion back. I want that. Baby, you got to date your husband. You got to date your wife. You got to put effort into it. If you have 3 kids and you're miserable with your husband or your wife, date them again. Bring it back to when it was sexy, when it was fun. Don't wear underwear at night. You know what I mean? Like, I like, it just boggles my mind that people are leaving marriages because of these little arguments that stack up, build resentment, and then the resentment turns into disgust. When you have repulsion for your husband, game over. That woman is not coming back. That woman already said, we're done. I'm moved on. She checked out a long time ago, and she's just waiting to file for divorce. That's at the end of the day what that happens. And the more these resentments keep building, the bigger the gap becomes, the worse it is for marriages. I know I just went on a whole tangent,
it's perfect.
But it's
I
believe in.
They had one of the things is they talk about in Dr. Buss's most recent book, which was When Men Behave Badly, is they talk about the dark triad. So this is Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. And so one of the things that you have to ask yourself, and this is always the question you should ask, especially if you come in my program, if you watch my show, if this thing is pervasive amongst your species, it must exist in evolution, meaning there must have been an evolutionary necessity for it. I frequently have discussions with women where they're in a relationship with a guy who is doing everything right and they're bored. And then they're like, well, I remember this passion that I had with this previous partner. And the obvious next question is, cool, how did it end? Well, he was lying about everything and he cheated on me. And the thing is that was just so, I'm kind of dealing with this right now in my life. It's one of these situations where like those sweet lies were so valuable to them that they go off and do that. And then when I have a discussion with a girl, I'm like, hey, just so you understand, for right now, business gets to 8 figures. Nothing comes before that right now. For this short period of time, that's what I'm going to concentrate on. And when you take away from that, or you don't bring me the piece that allows me to get business to 8 figures, then I'm not going to be able to be in a relationship with you, because you're not creating the harmony that I need. That doesn't mean I'm selfish or a narcissist, but I understand that you had a better time with the previous guy, but he was lying to you. That's the reason why it felt better. So I'm saying, just in general, it's not every woman that's like this, but frequently I see women going back. I've had this situation before. I remember this one girl, I didn't want to be in a relationship, and I told her, I was like, hey, listen, we can keep seeing each other, but to be honest with you, I'm not ready to be in a relationship right now. And then so she goes back and starts talking to this other guy, and I was like, hey, I'm just kind of confused. Like, you're dating a male stripper now, but you wanted a relationship before. And she's like, yeah, he told me he was going to be my boyfriend. And I'm like, what?
Oh, very good.
Yeah, very good. Like, and then it was so crazy. He lied to me. I was like, yeah, of course he lied to you. Like, that's the thing. Like, the difference is I was just telling you the truth, and you just didn't want to hear it. Be careful. And this is for men and women out there. Be careful that you find yourself in a happier situation when people are lying to you. It might not make any sense to you. Why would I be happier when people are lying to me? Well, if you weren't happier when people are lying to you, then lying wouldn't exist in our psychology. Yeah. But it exists because you want to temporarily placate individuals to buy your product, to align with you socially, or to have sex with you, or to be in a relationship with you. People will continue to lie. Are you consistently are the happiest points of your life consistently when people are lying to you? Ask yourself a question. Are you somebody who consistently buys self-help programs where you're doing nothing to change your life? You cry, and then you go back to your mom's basement. If that's the case, then what's happened is when people lie to you, those are your happiest moments. Are you a woman who's consistently going from Brock the bartender, and now you're dating Kyler
the bartender.
Kyler the fucking male stripper, you know what I'm saying? And then it's Chad Thundercock. Like, are you consistently going from one to another? And then it's not that, like, if it was just casual sex and both parties were agreeing to it, hey, go for it. But that's not what's going on. He's literally telling you you're the only one, he's going to be your fucking boyfriend, and you're listening to it, and you're so happy when you're hearing it. Are your happiest moments when people are lying to you? Really legitimately take account of that. That's going to take other friends in your life that are not yes men, who tell you, hey, bro, you're doing things that are stupid. You're like you said, you had a family member who told you you're a miserable person to be around, and you thank them for that. I've had similar situations in my life where somebody told me, hey man, you're too argumentative. You're not going to get what you want out of this. How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Crucial Conversations. Those books legitimately helped me in that area. So I thought that was really great. We've talked about this several times on the show, and I would love to hear. I've never heard somebody. So this was a hypothesis that I've heard presented, but I've never heard any proof for it. You've probably spoken about this with more confidence than anyone I've ever heard. So maybe you have some information that I don't, which is the concept of birth control, which causes you put the little birth control thing, the hormonal birth control in your arm. It causes you to raise your estrogen levels. And I think it has something to do with your prolactin as well, which causes your body to believe that it's pregnant so that you cannot get pregnant. And in doing so, there are studies that are inconclusive that show that women now become more attracted to less masculine features. They take the birth control out, then all of a sudden they look at their weak chin cuck boyfriend and they're like, fuck, what have I done? And I need to get a divorce. Okay, now this is just a hypothesis I had. What do you believe specifically about this concept?
It's 100% true. That's what I believe, because I've seen it way too often. I've seen women that are on hormonal birth control for 15, I don't know, many, many years, right? Get off birth control to have their first child with their husband, and they're repulsed, like utterly repulsed by everything, their smell, their behavior, the way he brushes his teeth, the way he snores at night. The repulsion is like, this is what I'm telling you, women have that ick factor. And when you have that ick factor for your husband, that is the worst thing that could happen. But the issue is that when you're pregnant, your hormones are changing all the time. Then you give birth, right? You experience postpartum, and then they put you back on birth control. I was 5 weeks postpartum, and they immediately wanted to put me on birth control. I said, I don't take birth control. We're doing natural family planning. I've been tracking my cycle since I was 20 something years old. I'm good off the birth control. She was like, are you sure? I go, I'm positive. And what's crazy, this blew my mind. So when I got pregnant with my daughter, I went to a gynecologist like a standard OBGYN, didn't know anything. This was this was post all this COVID stuff, losing my dad, whatnot. She was pushing the jab on me. I don't know how YouTube is.
I don't give a shit. Go ahead. It's whatever.
Okay. She was pushing the vaccine on me for literally every single appointment that I had. I said, there's not enough studies. I'm not going to be a guinea pig. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. She was relentless about it. She goes, it's safer than birth control. She goes, we give girls birth control at 12, 13, 14 years old. And she said, it's much safer than birth control. Riddle me that. How can you, and I don't think she understood how crazy that sounded coming out of her mouth. You're telling me that you're putting girls that haven't even experienced a regular cycle on birth control
to get rid of their acne.
To get rid of their hormonal acne, to get rid of, so that they don't get pregnant, if they have sex. How can you say that? She said it was so confidently that I was like, yeah, I'm good. I went the holistic route. I had my baby in water. That's how crazy, like I said, absolutely not. And the fact that these doctors are prescribing birth control like it's candy to these girls, and then they're on it for so many years. I have family members that were on it from 17 until they got pregnant at like 28 years old. That's insane to me. And what it does too, I'm sure you have the studies on this too, but long-term birth control use, your brain, the hypothalamus of a woman's brain shrinks. It will actually shrink. It's by like 6%, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it's around 6%. And the hypothalamus actually controls the rest of our hormones. So it's sending signals to our body saying, your libido's low, you want to kill yourself, like all of these things. I was on birth control. I was on low estrogen. That was what it was called at the time. And I had tried it because I was like, I'm in college. I might as well take it. It's free, like whatever. I was on it for about a month and a half, and I had suicidal ideation. And I'm telling you, I've never had any sort of ideation before in my entire life. And I was like, get this crap out of my body. And it was immediate. And women are going through their entire life not understanding why they're depressed, why they're on antidepressants, why they're on anxiety medication. And not only that, when you couple these two things together, like Leprexo and your birth control, right? Forget your libido, forget your sex drive, forget anything that makes you want to have sex with your husband, that wants to make sex at all, right? And so it's like, it boggles my mind how women can't put two and two together. Like, you have been on hormonal birth control. It doesn't matter whether it's the thing in your arm, an IUD. I think the safest one that you can use is a copper IUD because it doesn't have hormone. It's not like it's not sending anything into your body. It's just like blocking. But I've seen women literally being repulsed by their husbands, literally being having no sex drive, not being able to get wet, completely dry, and telling me about it. Be like, you use lube? I'm like, no, I don't need to. You know what I mean? And it's crazy to me. But these are how women are operating. And it makes sense why there are so many sexless marriages. I think it's like 20% of marriages, or 10 to 20%. It's kind of a broad number, but 10 to 20% of marriages are sexless. To me, that seems like a lot of sexless marriages. So you're sexless before you get married for some of these guys, and then you get married, and then you're sexless in your marriage. But yeah, it's mind-boggling to me that this whole idea of birth control. I get the utility. I understand why it was created. I understand the intention of it, right? But what we are now seeing the effects of birth control, and they are now doing these studies, right? There's enough time in between to gather the data. Now, I don't want to jump too far off topic, but this is how I feel about puberty blockers, what they're giving to kids. We don't know. We don't have long-term data on these things, right? We are now seeing the effects. Birth control was 1965. Math, like fifth. I can't do math. A lot of years, okay?
58 years.
A lot of 58 years of data to say, yeah, maybe it's not good for all women to take. Maybe we shouldn't, like, women shouldn't just be prescribed this right off the bat. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know. That's my spiel on that. I think birth control is very, very, very bad for women. I think it's changing brain chemistry. It's changing the way that we see men. These women want, effeminate men, and it's very easy to do that in today's society. And then they wake up, a couple years down the road, miserable, wants a divorce.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to me. And the data only just proves that.
Yeah, the reason why your OBGYN is going to push hormonal birth control over a copper IUD is because of residual income. Again, like this is one of the things that you guys want to talk about, like vaccines. No, it's expensive to make vaccines. Vaccines, you have to keep the Pfizer vaccine at negative 270 degrees Fahrenheit. That's fucking expensive refrigeration. It's fucking Xanax. It's Adderall. Yep. Those things you have to buy every month. They cost them next to nothing to produce. Yep. Those are the things where you grade. It's funny. You know where we source the opium that we put in our Oxycontin? From Afghanistan. We literally, it's so funny. It's like the illegal opium that we're trying to stop from coming into this country comes from the same place that we buy our opium for our Xanax, or not Xanax, but our Oxycontin. It's really funny. Those things, those residual things, that's what the doctor is going to keep you on forever, because that's a real conspiracy where pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money. Like permanent solutions, like, hey, again, I was taking Humira frequently because I've just like you have an autoimmune disorder, and for mine it came from JP8, which is the jet fuel that we use for the KC-135. Mm-hmm. So I had psoriatic arthritis that came from that, right?
Yeah.
So having arthritis in my joints. I just stopped eating gluten.
I
just stopped eating. Stopped drinking milk and eating gluten. It fucking goes away. I go to my rheumatologist and I explain it to him, and it's like he didn't hear what I just fucking said.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I just stopped eating gluten, doc, and he just didn't want to hear that, because then he can't, prescribe me Humira, which the government gets paid pays a ridiculous amount of money for. I don't pay anything for it because I'm a disabled veteran. But like, it's one of these situations where they keep me on it. Now I take Humira maybe once every 2 to 3 months. I was taking it once a week for a while, and it's just one of these situations where it's like the actual solution is so much less profitable.
Fasting.
Yeah, it's
fasting.
So much. Yeah, fasting is another one. Exactly.
I've been fasting for years. I do right now. I do 1 meal a day, 24-hour fasting. The best thing, first of all, lost all of the baby weight in like 3 months. Better than any what are these Ozempics and all this other stuff that they're pushing now for people to lose weight. Fasting, it cured. I had the same thing. So I developed a lot of autoimmune problems from the diesel spill on me. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, had all this stuff, arthritis, joint pain, stopped eating, really, like started fasting on a regular basis. All of those problems started going away. Didn't have to take medication anymore. My doctors were like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean you're not on? Like, we have to keep scanning you. We have to keep taking biopsies. We have to keep making sure, like, you're good. I'm like, I'm good. I'm fixing it with food and fasting. I eat meat, I eat eggs, I eat things that are going to actually like make me full and satiate me. That's it. I mean, it's just easy. It's really easy to pop a pill and be like, I'm good, and then drink my wine, right? Used to be my life. pop, pop a pill, drink wine,
Um,
drink a bottle.
the other one I thought was interesting, and I didn't think about it until you brought it up on No Jumper, was the idea of the tropes that we see on like a lot of sitcoms where
Yes.
the lead male is useless and dumb.
Yes.
The biggest one I watched. I read everything, so I read 50 Shades of Grey, and I saw some of the nonsense there. I like honestly one of the most damaging books I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
Like, yes, let's all wait for our billionaire with the huge penis to be
Christian
with
Grey.
us.
Yes.
And he's not going to fuck other women. He's just going to be there for us. And if we don't get the billionaire with the huge penis, then we need to leave and do something. It's like, it was so incredible to me that like this book was being pushed on people and like how damaging that it would be. But the other one was when you were talking about the tropes where these trope ideas of the man being
Simpsons,
useless. So
Family Guy.
it was just always like I remember I used to watch, what was it, the show on HBO, Sex and the City, and it was always like
Yes.
one dude after another who just like could not wipe his ass or take a dump or like anything, and they were all just like so progressively dumber. And I was just like,
Yes.
this is so crazy the way this is written. And then I watched Californication. Of course, it would be the opposite. And
Yes.
and one of the greatest shows of all time. There's a
I
reason
love
reason why I wear a black shirt every day is because Hank Moody. But the when you see that, the way that they were written is just being incredibly ignorant. And then you mentioned, and then it was the daughter. It's same thing with Rick and Morty, by the way. It's always the daughter who comes through and then just like saves the day. Can you go over that?
And I mean, it's exactly that. The daughter. I mean, Family Guy would probably not be. It's the son. It's the baby
Yeah.
and the dog. But it's always the girl that's solving all the problems. It's always the mom is the head of the household. The dad is always cracking jokes and is the one that is taking the brunt of everything. He's the idiot. Even just recently, what's the one with Bill Burr? What's the one with
I don't know.
Bill
I haven't seen it.
Burr? It's American some I don't know. But it's the same storyline, right? Dopey father, doesn't care, just like kind of, you know, just floats around making jokes.
Yeah, it's like
And you have
Homer
the head of
Simpson.
the
You see that with Randy Marsh. Yeah.
Yes, and then the mom, she's always put together. She has it on lock. The daughter, the son is the dumbest one of all.
Yeah. King of Queens is like this.
Yes.
Yeah. You all.
The son is the dumbest one of all.
Yeah.
And then the daughter, the smartest, she's figuring everything out. Boom, boom, boom. She has plans. She has ideas. I mean, I grew up. I'm a 80s. I'm 34 years old. Okay, so I grew up on TV. I grew up watching everything, like especially Nickelodeon, Nick at Night, like all these things. I was one of those kids that, you know, TV from morning until night. So when all of these things start to program your brain, you're like, that's how the world's supposed to work, right? Like that's how I'm not learning it from my parents. I'm not learning it from, you know, my friends' parents. I'm learning it from the television. And now these kids are learning it from TikTok, from Instagram, from Snapchat, from, you know,
It's not,
everything.
I mean, just mainstream movies. Like I think one of the most damaging movies for men ever. And I used to like the movie was Hitch. I couldn't believe that
Yes,
like, you're teaching
yes.
men to obsess over one woman and then go to pay a guy to learn these skills to be extremely what is the word I'm looking, vulnerable to a woman that you don't know. It's called stalking. That's called stalking. That's a felony. But like in this movie, it's like, no, just take this and then just be extremely open and forward and express your love from the beginning. Like Hitch. No, dude, this is fucking nonsense. That book was about obsessing over one woman. It was so crazy to me watching that shit.
Yeah. There's so many movies. There's so many movies. There's so many TV shows, and it's like embedded into our brains. And the fact that the fact that you didn't pick up the pieces until now, Like, yeah, it does make sense. It's all subliminally in our brains. I remember I stumbled on, this has nothing to do with like the dopey dad, but I was watching something had come up on my Instagram about like Ren and Stimpy or something, and it was so sexual. And I remember I loved Ren and Stimpy. I would watch that all the time, and it was so inappropriate. I had no idea. The whole show is the sexual show, and we're just sitting there watching, laughing at it, thinking it's cartoons. So it's like, and now that you're an adult, you can see, oh, there's a lot of sexual innuendos going on here. Like, that's weird. We were just watching this completely. Parents didn't care, walked right past it, none of that stuff. I mean, it's just it's crazy what it's crazy what things are allowed to be put online and media.
Um,
But
a couple things. You were supposed to do a debate on No Jumper with some girls who were doing
yes.
porn, and then what happened? How'd you end up on No Jumper?
So Ruslan.
Okay.
And so Ruslan and I are friends.
Yeah.
And he messaged me and was like, "Hey, do you want to be on No Jumper?" And I was like, Adam 22 No Jumper? Like, is there another No Jumper? Is there like a Christian No Jumper? I don't know. He's like, "No, Adam 22 No Jumper." And I was like, "Yeah, that would be really cool." And he was like, "Cool, I'm setting it up. Here's his information, send him an email." Adam, super cool, like messaged me, was like, "Yeah, I would love to have you on. We're gonna, meet with the producer, figure out what kind of show we want to do." I thought the show was gonna be with Ruslan and the two other girls. He actually did another show with an ex porn star and the woman who runs Exodus Cry. I thought we were all going to be on a panel together debating for porn stars. I showed up there thinking that was going to be the case. Then the day I'm supposed to shoot, the producer calls me, says, "Hey, the porn star that's supposed to debate you, she has COVID. So you're just going to have an interview with Adam." And I was like, "What? Like, that's what we're going to do now?" Like, I had all my notes prepared, like I was coming in, and I had that at that point, I was like, "Okay, I guess this is what we're going to do. I'm going to have a conversation with Adam." So she called sick. I showed up there. We had a almost 3-hour conversation, and it was great. It was not what I was expecting at all, and I'm very grateful to Ruslan for making that connection. I hope I can go back on um, at another time. The video actually, it's funny. The video at first had so many negative comments on it. They're like, "Who is this person? Why is this random girl talking to Adam? Where are the porn stars? Where are all the people, like the famous rappers and stuff?" And then as the episode gets more and more views, the comments are like, "Thank you for bringing someone with some sense. Thank you, Adam, for doing this. Great conversation." I was like, "Okay, it's all good." Because it's a completely different audience. It's not the red pill anti-feminist audience there. It's the whole hip hop
Yeah.
uh porn star
Yeah.
type of
It's not
OnlyFans
a
things.
lot of like internal self growth. This is one of the interesting things, and I've heard Myron talk about this in Fresh and Fit. So I have a team that posts up my clips, right? And when they put titles like "feminist destroyed" or
Yes.
"debate" or "someone's demolished" or anything to do with, by the way, anything to do with
Wrecked.
testosterone. By the way, do a video and put testosterone and estrogen in the title. Watch what happens. It's fucking crazy.
Really?
Yeah, for some reason, all the testosterone videos I do just go nuts. So when you do that, they're like super excited. And then when I have Professor Richard Reeves coming on here, basically explaining like the incredible crickets. I have Cole Gordon come on here. Well, Richard Reeves interview did well, but the clips nobody seemed to care about. This is probably the most important topic we will ever discuss. At Dr. David Buss. Now, until I went on Fresh and Fit and a couple other ones, and I said, "Hey, I have an interview with Dr. Buss." Then afterwards went viral.
Yes.
The thing with I'll have some girl on there being like, "Yeah, and I was gonna fuck these two guys at the same time." Explosion, just huge explosion. I have Cole Gordon on here, who's a sales trainer, teaches you how to make a sales funnel. The guy takes home $1 million a month, does $30 million a year in sales revenue. Crickets. And it's just like it's 1,000 views. And then I watch, and then Fresh and Fit talks about, we have a fitness channel. We're gonna help you get in shape. Nothing. Okay, we're gonna keep these hoes, these 304s accountable on their delusional hoes. Explosion.
It's funny. It's so funny. I have this internal battle with myself all the time, especially as a content creator. I want to provide value. So I started I call them educational reaction videos. That's my term. I coined that. Educational reaction videos. And I actually label it as education on the
tabs. The tab. What category in YouTube? It's education. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Because you have to react, and also I like to give advice. I hate those reaction videos like, "Oh yeah, he's a pussy." Oh, like blah blah. It's so like every video is the same thing. Like, bro, stop doing it.
And then they just do so well, and it's so disappointing because they do so well.
It's so disappointing. And I'm sitting here like the 5 love languages that will help your marriage. 2 views, like nothing, crickets. It's so frustrating sometimes because, I try to give a mix of entertainment with actual advice and actual data and things like that. I try to make all my videos at least have pop-ups and things that will, with information and data to support what I'm saying, and I'm not just talking crap, and still it's like all you care about is these hoes get wrecked. And feminists.
We should do it. Hey, Rebecca, we should do this. We should come up with like the top 10 most commonly used titles. Hoes get wrecked. Feminist gets destroyed. Delusional hoe. Modern woman put in her place. Like the same ones over and over again.
Mike Sartain puts former feminist in her place.
Just crazy shit like that.
This video will go bananas. I'm telling you right now.
Isn't it crazy?
Video will go.
So one of the things I like to point out, right? So I think Andrew Huberman is, right? The Huberman Labs. He's a PhD, I believe, in ophthalmology, and then he's a professor at Stanford. And then Lex Friedman has a PhD in, I believe, robotics. I believe that's Christ. And they have, to me, probably the 2 most important people on YouTube are those 2 guys right there because of the
Lex
information.
Friedman, for sure.
Yes. And then you look at their view counts, and then you look at their subscription. And again, he's been very nice to me, so I don't mean to bash him, but Logan Paul. I met him a couple times. Super nice guy. When you look at the amount of interaction that Logan Paul gets on social media versus Andrew Huberman, who could fucking save your life, and Lex Friedman, who has an accurate description of the sociology that you live in right now, but you don't want to watch, but you want to watch Logan go dab, 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 dab. It just, like, you need to understand the state of the world that you live in. I don't know that we can change it, but just understand when you start leading more towards this guy who actually does the work to study. It's so funny, man. I had a literal theoretical physicist on here one time, and I have a background in astrophysics. And we sit there and we talk and we start discussing the reality of ever like bumping into extraterrestrials. It wasn't a conspiracy video. It was actually, Proxima Centauri is 4.1 light years away. It's 24 trillion miles. This is the speed that they would have to travel. It was like a real discussion. No one gave a fuck. You go on there and say like UFOs proven. And it's just like, it just blows up. And like your faith in humanity is darkened so much when you see people like, again, I'll just say this again. I love Joe Rogan, but the fact that he hasn't had Dr. Buss on his podcast is one of the most puzzling, confusing things I've ever seen in my entire life. They live 5 miles away from each other. Stuff like that just doesn't make any sense. Dr. Buss is the professor of the Buss Laboratory at the University of Texas at Austin. Joe Rogan does his podcast from Austin, Texas. Makes no sense at all. The guy who wrote the foreword for Gadsad's book is Dr. David M. Buss. Gadsad he has been on Joe Rogan more than any other guest in history, more than anyone else.
Crazy.
I know. I still utter and complete confusion why this doesn't happen. Another Longhorn, fucking was it Neil deGrasse Tyson? Been on there a ton of times.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
So it's just one of these things where it's like our society goes back to the whole Tekashi 6ix9ine thing. It's not confusing that Tekashi 6ix9ine's a snitch. It's confusing that we still accept him afterwards. And then it's not confusing that like people like Logan Paul. It's that people like Logan Paul 100 times more than they like Andrew Huberman and Lex Friedman. That's the part that's just so mind-numbing to me. And so the thing is, do I get depressed or do I just raise my children a different way and they become superheroes? I mean, I think that might be the only answer, because the Overton window doesn't shift to the right. It tends to just shift to the left.
I know.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple other things that I really liked. You went on Fresh and Fit. I saw that about a year ago. You went on the Fresh and Fit. I went there a couple of months ago, and your experience there, I actually thought things were going to be a lot more acrimonious, and they were really, obviously, Myron and Fresh are super, super cool. I think people get like a weird impression about them. Before and after the show, they were super nice to the girls, and a lot of times the girls, one of the things that happens on that show is that the girls are going there to stir up shit and to get on. I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
I went there one time, and Sonia Mallory, who lives here in Vegas, she's a porn star. She was in the back middle for the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of tattoos, very pretty, very deep voice, but like she does porn on her OF with her husband. And I asked her afterwards, and I was like, hey, Sonia, I just got a question for you. After this show is over, can you tell me how many new subscribers you have on your OnlyFans? Remember, these are the guys, 304.
Is this the Brazilian girl?
She's I know which one you're talking about. She has a deep voice too, but she was sitting offset to the right. No, this girl was this dead center in the middle. I asked her, she said she got 2,000 subscribers on OnlyFans. Remember, in the comments, delusional hoe, 304, all this kind of stuff. She gained, there are fewer comments than there were new subscribers. She got 2,000 new subscribers on OF. Let's just say she charges $20 a month. Like this girl's going to pull in 100K, 200K from sitting and doing Fresh and Fit, and you can abuse her and call her all the names you want. And then while you're calling her 304, you're masturbating to her pictures. This is like legitimately the issue. Like this is the issues. Like you are saying that these are low value women jerking off to the same low value women that you're trashing. And it's just
or reaching out to them on Instagram saying like, I love you, I want to be with you, after they say, oh, she's a hoe, she's this, she's stupid. Y'all are literally messaging her. If you really wanted a good girl, go out into the world. Go to Starbucks, go to Target. My husband's like, go to Target. That's where all these single moms are.
Well, that's really funny. One of the other things that I'm noticing is that, like, because of these shows, and we're going to talk about this because you made a discussion about female roundtable discussions. Specifically, you were talking about the Whatever podcast. And I have one we called Access Vegas, but we talk about dating with girls who are models, but we always try to bring science back into it, is that over time, women who want to use this in order to grow their social media platform, in order to make money, are more incentivized to come on your show. And you start to get a less and less normal distribution of women on the show, which is nobody's fault. But it's one of these situations where like 9 normal girls want to go on Fresh and Fit, but then there's 2 other girls who like have OnlyFans and they're triple motivated to go on Fresh and Fit. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. And so that we end up in this weird situation where we have an overrepresentation of women who are trying to use social media to get money, and now we don't really, the message even gets more and more lost, and now there's more delusional 304. It's like you're complaining about the delusional 304, and then you know what I'm saying? I think it wasn't Whatever podcast. I can't remember which one had Courtney Taylor on there before she murdered her boyfriend. Do you remember the story? She murdered her Nigerian boyfriend's OnlyFans thing, and then afterwards
I heard
she's covered in blood. She's covered in blood, and then like that video of her covered in blood is on her OnlyFans. Never heard about this? Just madness. Yeah, look it up. It's fucking crazy.
It's on her OnlyFans?
I believe
that's in jail, though, right?
I believe someone got a hold of her OnlyFans and then posted that. Like she told them to post that video so people would subscribe. It's fucking madness. But I mean, you know, going back to the point I was trying to say is like, I thought it was interesting your interpretation. Like you didn't want to do reaction videos to these female panel shows before, and because of the way that they were just being set up and derived.
Yeah, I think. So at first it was novelty, right? When you look at something that Fresh and Fit really set the tone for these types of shows. Let's give them the credit that they deserve, right? And so early on, I went on when I think they had like 200 or 300,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I had 20,000 subscribers. And that was a completely different show than what we see today.
Yeah.
I don't even watch Fresh and Fit anymore. I don't watch these things anymore. People send me these clips. People send me things to react to, these clips to react to. And trust me, I would make so much money on YouTube if I just reacted to these videos. But to me, it's boring. It's the same conversation. It's the same talking points. It's the same questions in every single podcast, and they all just replicate each other. And that to me is where I'm kind of at my wit's end with all of it, because I get it. It's a very smart, financially lucrative business
And
model.
it never gets old. Intersexual dynamics are as old as intersexual human beings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's the thing, is like, but as you mentioned, because it is now so skewed
Yeah.
to the extremes, it's no longer relatable. So it's all these guys in the comments just, oh, she's a hoe, blah, blah, F these women, yada, 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 keyboard warriors. And it's, where's the actual growth? Where's the understanding?
Well, this goes back to Logan Paul versus Andrew Huberman. Where's the growth?
Yeah.
Like, nobody wants to listen to the growth.
No one wants to grow. They just want to say, I'm mad. I'm going to be on I'm going to look at these videos on Fresh and Fit and whatever, and just pearly things, and I'm going to get my rocks off. It's essentially what I call it. It's shitty TV for men. It's like, it's like the Real Housewives version of reality television, but for men, because that's what we just watch. Trashy TV. It's trashy TV.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And listen, great. Make the money. Do what you need to do. Right. I give them, their whatever. I'm very small in comparison to all of these creators. Right. I'm probably never going to get to that point. Why? Because I care too much.
I keep quoting scientists, so I'm never going to grow. That's what I've
care
determined.
More about people.
What's your opinion, Michael? I don't have an opinion, but this is what this scientist said. Dislike.
Exactly. They don't care. They don't want to know about the science. They don't want to know about the studies. They just want to use that talking point, the best one. 80% of women initiate divorce, 90% if they're college educated. Just to prove that you're not going to get married, cool. Go get married.
Yeah.
Don't get married. It's so simple. Make the decision. Don't get married. But don't say that it's, because of these women. No, you're choosing bad women to be with. You want the Instagram model that's on Fresh and Fit debating. I don't call it debates. It's more of like,
hold on, Rebecca, isn't it funny? Because they were not acrimonious with you at all. Isn't it funny how many women go on the show? Like, for instance, I'll tell you, I probably did around 9 hours of study on you before I did this interview. And,
very good.
And I usually try to do a minimum of 8 per guest. And in the gym, I just listen to double speed, like all your interviews and stuff like that.
It's probably annoying.
No, it's great. It's great. And when I do this, it's always interesting to me when you see a debate, because I did a debate with a guy the other day. I'm not even gonna say his name because the guy was like, after he lost, he goes in the comments and tries to rewrite history.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking like, no, bro, you have 46 subscribers and I have 45,000, and I watched 100 of your videos and took notes and took you apart. And you didn't watch anything that I did and were completely just blindsided by all the stuff that I was saying. And it's interesting because whenever I would have a debate with somebody who has a political viewpoint, one of the things I did a 3-hour and 48-minute debate with flat earthers. And one of the things I did was I knew every single one of their objections to the earth being round and read it to them first. And it was so annoying for them because all the gotcha moments that they would usually get with other people, they couldn't get with me because I was so far invested. And it's one of these weird things of like, because I've had conversations with feminists before, and it's like they're just so unprepared to have this argument because they can't conceive of a reality where anything they're saying could possibly be wrong, right?
Exactly.
There is no reality where men are physically abused. There is no reality where the 9 times as like when a man is divorced and over the age of the 40, he's 9 times as likely to commit suicide. There's no reality where that could possibly be true. And so when those things come up, it's not that they can't accept them. They're so unprepared for them that they just get moved in the opposite direction. And what's so crazy to me is how even at this point on Fresh and Fit, they still get these women who just walk right into it every single time. Like, how have you not? If I was going to go on a show with 1 million subscribers, you better fucking believe I would watch 30 episodes beforehand and be ready for this. And they go in there and it's like, what percentage of women initiate divorce? Well, I don't fucking know. What percentage of men, like, what does the average man in the United States make? 70,000, 170,000. You know, he makes 36,000 a year. How tall is the average man? He's 6'2". No, he's 5'10". What is it? Yeah. How is this still happening? Like, that is the part that is always so crazy to me is how these women just literally walk right into a fence. Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy? There's no way. If you had me, and I just already did this research, if you had me on your show, I would do so much research before I came on your show. I just don't understand how people do this. It's just mind-boggling to me.
You know what? It's laziness. It's just pure laziness. People don't care. These women that go on Fresh and Fit, I've seen it because I was there. They're all drinking. They're all having a good time. They come from the club or they're going to the club and they got picked up by one of the recruiters and say, hey, you want to be on a podcast? And they say the wildest things. Why? Because they want to be viral. They want to go viral. You see that clip of that guy that says, I have 7 baby mamas and 7 kids by 7 baby mamas and I don't care. Have you seen this clip that's been surfacing?
No.
This guy has been going viral on social media. He's saying, oh, it's like, yes, we both laid down together, but I told these women that I didn't want their kids after they got pregnant. And everyone's commenting, oh, he's the Pookie. He's this he's that guy, right? Of what the red pill talks about. And then he's saying, oh, these women need to take accountability for what they've done. Like, son, you're not the one. You're not the one to be pointing fingers and saying accountability. You got 7 women pregnant and have 7 kids by 7 different baby mamas, and you're still doing it. Like, you're still paying for abortions and paying for, Plan Bs. Just get a vasectomy at this point. But he wants to go viral. He's been on every show now. He's been on Just Burley Things. He was interviewed by, all these different shows and stuff. It's so easy to say something out of this world crazy and be viral. It's so easy to do that. You say some wild things you actually don't believe or they're half true, and it gets clipped and then put on TikTok, put on Instagram, and this it goes like wildfire. It goes like wildfire. So it doesn't surprise me that these women go on these shows and just run their mouth and say, "Oh yeah, I've heard the wildest things from these shows." This woman said, I was going on a date with a guy and his mom was there and she sucked his whatever. And I was like, why would you say that on the internet? Why would anyone? I'm going to say this and then shut up. The internet never forgets.
Yeah.
The internet is forever. It doesn't matter if you posted it, delete it. Someone has a screenshot somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Shut your mouth. Why are people saying this wild stuff? For what? For that 15 seconds of fame? Because it's not 15 minutes anymore. It's less than 15 seconds of fame. And then you're gone with the wind.
One thing I'd never heard of this before, and you brought this up before, was the idea of transmaxxing. What is this? I had no experience of this whatsoever. This is a very foreign idea. Can you explain?
Okay. So apparently there's this idea called transmaxxing. So it's incel men who cannot get women who wrote. So I think it's one guy or it's a few guys. They wrote a manifesto and they put it online. They put it on Reddit and they said, if you if you can't get girls, if you can't attract women, become a woman. You're actually attracted to women. You don't want to be a woman, but you will become a woman so that you can have more sex, that you can, have boobs, so you can do all of this stuff, so you can wear dresses, all this stuff. And then the last part of the manifesto was so you can get cheaper car insurance. I was like, that's the most
That is
practical
pretty
out of
practical.
all
I
of
cannot argue against transmaxing as far as getting cheaper for car insurance. That is factual. Yeah.
right? I was like, wow, out of all of this manifesto that these guys wrote, so they're literally becoming women. They're going through the process of transitioning so that they can sleep with women, so that they can identify as lesbian or something. Uh I read the manifesto. I'll send you the manifesto. You can react to it if you would like.
Well,
But
100%.
it's
I'm gonna
wild.
read this to my clients. 100%.
It is
We'll make a YouTube
wild.
video reaction to it. I think that's a great idea.
It's It's the craziest thing you've ever
Hey,
seen.
so,
I was like, my jaw was on the floor.
so let's just point this out though, because I want to bring this up. From our side of the political aisle, even though we think this is crazy, neither one of us is saying these people should be banned or taken off the
No,
air or have their accounts removed because they say something we don't agree with.
no.
We think it's
Yes,
funny and we want to read it to other people, even if we don't agree. Everybody out there
yes,
listening, even when we don't agree with them, we're still fine with showing it on social media and then having an open course of debate about these ideas, and sometimes maybe having a laugh if they're kind of ridiculous. I had this one guy I was debating. It was really funny. He would not stop harping on this one point. He goes, "Can you actually teach your clients, Michael?" And I don't teach a dating course, so like it's kind of a stupid question. But he goes, "Can you teach your clients when a woman is actually genuinely sexually attracted to them?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Can you teach them?" Because I don't think you can actually teach them. I don't think most guys in red pill can't teach them. And I'm like, "Yes, you can tell when a woman's genuinely sexually attracted to you because she has sex with you." And it was like so obvious to me that I didn't understand. It's like, how can you tell them when there's money in your bank account? You just go check your bank account. It was like that level of obvious to me. And then I realized, oh, this guy's got robbed by a prostitute. He's been robbed by a stripper. And so he now thinks he's an
uh,
expert on this. And it was just so
mm.
mind-bogglingly like crazy that he was asking these questions over and over again in this debate. And I just didn't even know how to respond after a while.
You're like, she'll suck your dick.
It's like
She'll,
you'll be like, "Hey, do you want to go back to my place?" And she'll say yes. If she says no, guess what? She's not attracted. It's like not very confusing. It was very, very crazy watching this. Anyway,
pretty straightforward here.
the one thing is, so there are studies that show that again, if virgins get married to each other, the likelihood of them staying in a marriage is actually pretty high. Sexual satisfaction
Yes.
actually stays high. It's about 75% for men, 65% for women. And then it drops down more for women once they get above 10 partners before marriage, that whole kind of thing. The same study actually stated, though, if two people have sex before they're married and then marry that person that they had sex with, that does not affect the likelihood of divorce. However, you had a separate study that I'd never heard before, or you were referring to, which was the idea of cohabitation before marriage causing a problem
Yes.
in marriage. I think there's a lot of guys out there that might want to
Yes.
know some stuff about this. What are the facts behind this?
So, and I will actually say the study that I did pull was uh from before. It was before the new study came out that said it's actually the opposite.
Okay.
Um that cohabitation is actually beneficial in marriage. So, or for marriage. However, Jordan Peterson talks about this and he says that, you basically cohabitate with this person, and in the mind of a woman, she's thinking, if I move in with my fiance, if I move in with my boyfriend, right? This is going to lead to marriage.
Hmm.
So this is what that study is saying. So it's saying, as a woman, the brain of a woman says, this is the next step to marriage. So I'm going to move in with my boyfriend, with my fiance, right? For the man, it's the opposite. It's, I have more time to test this relationship out and see if she is marriage material.
Yes.
That means that they're not having this conversation. They're not talking it out. They're not communicating, saying, this is the timeline from moving in to engagement to marriage. They're not having these conversations. When people move in together, they're like, yeah, do you want to move in? Cool. Here's my key. Bring your stuff. Well, whatever. Like figure out the logistics. And that's it. That's the conversation, right? And then in the mind of the woman, she's like, well, okay, 6 months, I can do this. I could do this for 6 months. A year, I could do that for 6 months or a year. 3 years goes by, 5 years goes by, no ring on my finger. And then you just wasted 5 years of your life waiting for a man who doesn't want to commit to you because, and I don't have the study for this, but I have, I guess, confirmation from other men. Men generally know that they want to marry you from the beginning. Like from very early on, I would say that men know if you are going to be wifey material, if he wants to marry you or not. So men who essentially string women along, they want the
Well, you get a lot of sex.
It's
They're
comfortable.
living with you.
Yes.
That's it. I mean, that's why I'll
Yes.
say that's why men have women move in is because like they're just, you're going to have a lot more sex in those situations. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's predictable and it becomes convenient.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for.
Sure.
It becomes convenient, right? Maybe you cook dinner from time to time. Maybe you do his laundry. You act as a wife. You're playing the role as a wife, but you don't have the marriage. You don't have the title. You don't have the ring on your finger, right? So for a lot of women, that messes them up psychologically because they're thinking that moving in with this person, this potential husband, is going to eventually lead to marriage. And then women end up in these relationships, these boyfriend and girlfriend relationships for 5, 7, 10 years, and they have kids. And so what's the point of getting married at that point when you have kids, when you live together, when you share all of the finances? You're basically married, right? But I think a lot of women don't see it that way. They want the status of being a wife. They want the status of being married. So that's what the study was saying essentially, is that, and it also leads either to no marriage at all, right? That study said this cohabitating can lead to no marriage or divorce early on in marriage. So I will send you that. I would love that study as
Beautiful.
well. Yeah.
Last thing I want to talk about is you discussed the Miss Universe pageant. I host several pageants. It's one of the things I do here frequently in Las Vegas. I thought it was very interesting how you looked at what was going on with the Miss Universe pageant and saw latent misogyny in it. And I thought your take on it was really interesting. Could you expound on that?
Yes. So so for people who don't know, Miss Universe pageant is now owned by a trans woman. Okay, so this is a man who transitioned into a woman, and the team, they said, is a female-led team. Although biologically they have 2 men on the team of the corporate, what's it called?
The executive
The
suite.
C-suite,
Yeah.
right? The C-suite. So when I read the article, right, and if we're going by leftist terms, if we're going by woke ideology, feminist talking points, all of that stuff, right? Sex and gender are not the same thing.
Yes.
Sex and gender to them are not the same thing. So a female is not the same thing as a woman. So you can't interchange woman and female in a very left-leaning publication and think that that's okay, because female means XX chromosomes,
Yes.
biological woman. Now, a woman in our eyes, like the realists, the people that are grounded, understand, yes, you can 100% interchange female and woman. They are the same thing, because sex and gender are the same thing, because we don't live in la la land. But for the feminists and for the woke left, this progressive left that thinks that gender is a social construct, and that sex is binary, saying it is a female led and female run and owned team and female owned organization would be false, would be absolutely false and disingenuous, because it is not. And that's the same thing. If we want, like, language is so important, and it's completely being just dismantled in front of our eyes, right? You're saying one thing and then they're writing another thing, and then it's confusing. It's confusing because a trans woman is that, a trans woman. She's not a female. She's not born with XX chromosomes. She doesn't have female anatomy. She doesn't have a womb. She doesn't have the same sex, it's just Michael, I'm sorry.
So just to reiterate, you don't have a problem with her being trans, neither do I.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah. Again,
I don't have a problem with the trans.
The problem isn't, Caitlyn Jenner, being
woman of the year.
The problem is when you're woman of the year, the other women who suffered being a woman, and women do have to suffer sometimes, those women are now surpassed because in the mind of the people giving out the award,
yes.
Caitlyn Jenner has suffered, by the way, who was a gold medalist, lived in a really nice house his entire life,
yes.
Drives very expensive cars and is famous
yes.
and usually doesn't even have to pay for shit, has suffered so much that now
yes.
she is now woman of the year. And again, it's
Correct.
not my place to be offended. It's very hard to offend me, first off, but secondarily, I'm not a woman who might, I don't know, consider being offended by being surpassed in that type of situation.
When Dylan Mulvaney, who identifies as a female, I don't know if you know who this person is. Okay, Dylan Mulvaney, just look the name up.
Okay.
The biggest transition story of the year, male to female. He has documented. He went from documenting his days of girlhood. So basically, they're calling it woman face because he is playing a character of a woman, this blonde bimbo, legally blonde type of woman. That's the character, I can't say caricature, that he is playing, right? Gets funded or gets partnered with Tampax. And now it's like, okay, I get it. You want to be progressive. Tampax, you want to make a splash. I get it. Trans women don't bleed. They don't get periods. You can't shove it up your butt. I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you, but that's just not how this works. Our anatomies are different. And so a trans woman, Dylan Mulvaney, who has not changed their name, is now the spokesperson for a female product. You can't make this stuff up, honestly. It's just mind-boggling that we have gone so progressive and so left that a biological man is promoting and mansplaining how to use a tampon to women who bleed every month for 5 to 7 days out of the month. So riddle me that. And I get offended. Actually, I don't really get offended. I get offended in the sense of it's just mockery. It's just mocking women. It's blatant misogyny. And if I'm not a feminist anymore. I think the whole misogyny and patriarchy and all that stuff is crap anyway.
Yeah, but
the way that it's talked about.
But you believe the idea of men coming into women's arenas, transitioning to be female, is a form of misogyny.
Correct. And also the guys that are going into female prisons, I'm going to send you this post as well. There was the stat that says there are 200 new incoming male to female prisoners going into prison, but you don't see, it's zero from women, female,
transitioning to
female
men.
to men inmates. You don't see women going into male spaces like that. You don't see that transition because why? She'll get raped in male jail. We know this. We know this, but the issue is like these men that are playing dress up, because a lot of them don't even get the sex, like they don't go through the actual transitioning process of chopping off your penis, getting breasts. They don't go through that. They're taking estrogen. Yes. Okay. They're taking estrogen. They're feminizing their faces. Cool. But if you still have your penis, you should not be like I think the baseline should be, if you still have your penis, you're not a woman.
I think when it comes to athletics, like again, fully in support of
Correct.
anyone wanting to
Yes.
transition. I am
Yes.
not in support
That's
of
what I'm saying.
I'm not
That's
in support
exactly
of
what I'm saying.
I'm not in support of my daughter having to wrestle at 135
Correct.
in Texas and getting like crushed by Max Berg,
or
which
female,
is yeah.
or female inmates being raped in prison because a male identifies as a female, and now there's nothing. I'm telling you, Michael, there's nothing. There's no criteria. There's nothing. You can just say, I identify as a female now, and now I'm a woman. I identify as this microphone. I identify as this cup. I identify as a tree. Why? Like, yeah. Why are we taking these people seriously? If you want to transition, I am so on board. If you want to do it, it's your body, it's your autonomy. You can do whatever you want as long as you're not harming anyone else. Cool. I'm totally okay with gay, trans, bisexual, whoever you want to be, right? I have a problem when deviants, when people that want to do harm are literally just getting greenlit to being in the space because we have to make everything acceptable for everyone, when women are the ones that are suffering in these spaces, because now I got to look at a penis anytime I go into a bathroom, because now I have to worry about taking my daughter to the YMCA or to swim class or to anything, because I don't know what predators are going to be there. That's the problem, right? Or engaging with sports, putting her in sports. How do I know that she's going to have an equal fair shot at whatever she's trying to do if she's competing with biological men that have not transitioned? And the criteria is so like, it's subpar for men to transition into female in sports, right? And these spaces where, like the spa situation that happened, where the young girl was in the spa with her mom and she's looking at male genitals, that is not okay. That is, and real trans people just want to fit in with everyone else. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to make a big scene. Blair White actually talks about this, who is a trans woman, right? And I will use her pronouns because she literally says, I will go into a private stall of the bathroom. I go into the women's bathroom, but I will go into a private stall because no one needs to see my stuff. You know what I mean? Like, there's the people that are bad actors, the ones that are getting the headlines, they're the problems. And when I talk to my gay friends and when I talk to like people in the community, the LGBTQ community, they don't want anything to do with these activists. They don't want anything to do with these people that are, making a splash and making a scene, because it makes them all look bad. And then they can't live their lives in peace. They can't live their lives just being the person that they want to be. That's the end of my soapbox. Just let women be women again, please.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. That was
Michael, you're like,
I'm good.
maybe
Hey,
I should have.
No. This is what I do.
I'm very passionate about
good.
women.
Hey, I'm totally fine with that. This is perfect. Where can we find you, Rebecca?
You can find me on YouTube at Rebecca Barrett. I'm almost at 100,000 subscribers. I think I have 91,000 subscribers. I would love to be at 100,000 subscribers. That is my goal for the year. Well, it's a little bit more than that. And then you can find me on Instagram at I am Rebecca Barrett, and they took me off TikTok, so I lost that.
Why'd they take you off
privilege.
TikTok? Like, what was the specific one that took you off TikTok?
Oh, about the beauty pageant, about a male taking. It hit 1 million views, 1.2 million views.
Mm.
I was coasting. I was getting a lot of followers, whatever. It was about Brian Nugent, who won the pageant. He was an Asian. He's the Asian man. I don't know. He won this beauty pageant, got a scholarship for women. And I said, welcome to feminism, modern day feminism, where men can beat women in their own beauty pageants, their own sports. Just happy person day. That's what I said for International Women's Day.
And they took your
happy person day.
So they permanently suspended your TikTok because of that?
Yeah. I can't, like, they basically said, like, I would have to, I had to start over, and I'm done playing China's game. I'm not gonna give them my
That's madness,
information.
man. All right.
I use it for content, but I don't post there.
I love it. Awesome. Well, hopefully we'll see you soon. I'm going to be hosting, I believe it's an animal rescue charity on, it's going to be May the 20th in South Beach. So I'm
not be in South Beach.
No, will not be. No. But no. I'm going to try to go on Fresh&Fit before that, like on the 19th. That's a Friday. So hopefully
maybe we'll meet back on Saucecast.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I was definitely going to do that. I need to go on Jedediah's show as well.
Me too.
To discuss a couple of things on there. So that's really exciting. It was really great to hook up with you. I thought your ideas were very interesting and informative. And no, I don't regret having you on. I thought that was awesome. I love when people go on rants. That's my job. That's my job, is to get that out of you, you know? So I thought that was terrific. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you guys soon. And make sure you guys subscribe to her channel, get her to 100K here pretty quick. We're going to see great things for Rebecca. You have like a book or anything else you got coming out?
No, maybe a children's book eventually, probably in the works. Not anytime soon.
I love it.
Putting it out there.
All right, guys. Once again, hey man, thank you guys so much. We've hit just about 200,000 downloads on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And last month we did 6 million impressions on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. So I want to say appreciate to all you guys for been watching me. And going around and being recognized, because people are like, hey, I watch your show. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. You don't really watch my show. They're like, yeah, I do. It's still something that I don't get used to. So I want to say thank you to all the new subscribers to the show, and especially to all the guys who just joined MOA in the last couple of months. Thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully you find some value out of all this, and I will see all of you next week.